Hi, this is Patty Peltakos, the Monday host of A Public Affair. If you like what you hear on WORT, please consider sending us a donation of whatever amount. And remember to listen to the A Public Affair podcast. Thanks. Bye.
6'6" above sea level. I grab the mic because I like to take you to another mental level. Low power frequency radio modulation. The big sound from underground. We bring the truth to places truth is never heard before. We bring the sound.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Monday, July 27th, 2020 edition of A Public Affair. My name is Patty Peltakos, and I'll be your host this hour. Today's show will be devoted to the two Democrats who are running to represent Assembly District 49. This district is in the southwestern corner of the state, and it's the southwesternmost district in the state. District 49 borders Illinois and the Mississippi River. It covers all of Grant County, along with areas of Richland, Lafayette, and Iowa counties. In the first part of the show, Sean Murphy Lopez will be talking with us about his campaign, and in the second part of the hour, Barrett Galaner will talk about his campaign. But first, to Sean Murphy Lopez. Sean, welcome to A Public Affair.
Thanks, Patty. Great to be here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me today. So, especially now that you're sitting in a closet, I really appreciate it. So, Sean, let's just dive right in and tell me, please, why are you running to represent District 49 in the Wisconsin State Assembly?
Yeah, so the reason I'm running is I think that the state legislature could be working harder for rural areas. So, we have several problems going on in rural areas, and they have been going on for decades. We have declining school enrollment across K-12 and even higher education in our district, which includes UW-Platteville. We also have main streets with a lot of vacancies, and those vacancies have been going up, and we have a declining number of small farms. And also, I'm very concerned about the concentration of wealth in politics. I think wealthy people have too much influence over the political process, and I would like to see rural people at the grassroots level have more control.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about your district, because I don't have a very clear sense in my head, other than the Mississippi River and some of the stuff close to the Mississippi, of what your district is.
Sure. Most people ask, what cities or towns are in your district when they're trying to get a sense of it. So Grant County includes 5 cities on a technical level with the state of Wisconsin. So we have Platteville, Boscobel, Lancaster, Fenimore, and Cuba City. And then the western half of Richland County is included in the district, and that's where I live. And we just have a few villages. We have the villages of Viola, Boaz, and Yuba, which is the second smallest incorporated village in the state. And that's where I live, 2 miles outside of. And then we also include a corner of Lafayette County, which is the village of Benton. And then a few small villages that straddle the Grant, Iowa County line that are in Iowa County. So Livingston, Montfort, and Muscadet are also in the district. So that's actually a sense of... Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, go ahead. No, so it's primarily a rural district then, right?
Absolutely. So a third of all of the residents of our district live in the country like I do. And another third of them live in small villages, like some of those that I just mentioned. And then about a third live in those, what we technically call cities, those 5 that I listed in Grant County. So yes, we're a very rural district. We're very farming focused. We have a lot of recreational land, especially as you go further north. This is a very beautiful part of the state, of course, that a lot of people know about, the Driftless area. And, we just have a lot of good, I'd say, salt of the earth people in our area, hard workers. But there's also been a lot of struggles over the years. And another thing that is really interesting about our district is we are one of the few districts in the state that predicts the winner in every presidential, governor, U.S. senator race. We're a very independent-minded group in this part of the state. So you never know which way we're going to vote until the end. And once we do, that usually predicts the way the whole state or the country is going to go.
Wow. Amazing. So you work on you were elected to the Richland County Board of Supervisors. So tell me a little about that work.
Sure. I was elected in April of 2018 to my first term. I was reelected this past spring to my second term. We have 2-year terms. I chair the Finance and Personnel Committee as well as the Rules Committee. And then I also serve on the Land Conservation and the UW Ag and Extension Committee as well. And, running for county board was such a great way to get to know my neighbors. I ran against an incumbent and I won against him, obviously. And I knocked on every door in my district out in the country. And a lot of people out here said, boy, no one ever bothered to come to my door before. Thanks for coming out here. And since then, a big focus of mine has been transparency. So a lot of people, they're not always sure what's going on at the local government level. I think this can certainly be said at the state government level as well, which of course I'm running for now. So what I do is I send out a monthly newsletter to folks. I make myself very visible in the community. I only represent 800 people, so this is a very local, position here. You focus on a small number of people and serving them really well, and it's an honor to do it. And I really love my work on the Richland County Board.
Okay. And you also work in transportation as a transportation planner?
That's right. So I work from home for a consulting firm. Before we moved to Wisconsin in 2014, my husband and I worked for the city of Minneapolis, and I was a transportation planner there. I focused on bicycle and pedestrian related projects, and that's still what I do for the consulting firm I work with now. And oftentimes what we'll do is we'll be hired by different communities who want to find out from their residents what they want their transportation system to look like, especially as it relates to making things more safe for people on the roads. And so we listen to their priorities, and then we help cities come up with projects that are actually going to get results. So, I am a planner, but I'm also a very action-oriented person. When I worked up at the city of Minneapolis, my job was to deliver projects on the street. So putting in new bike lanes, putting in crosswalks, things that would just make it safer for everyone and more clear about, where people should be on the street. So I know how to work within government. I know also how to save money on projects. You have to be very careful with money when you work inside government, or I guess you should be, is the point I would make. Not everyone is, but that's always a priority of mine because I'm a rural person. I was growing up with this very big concern about where was the money coming from, just to get by, living on a farm, living with a single mom. These were just things that you had to be concerned about. So I'm very interested in good government, especially fiscally.
So did you grow up in Richland County?
No, so I grew up in western Iowa and northern Missouri. So okay. I was born in western Iowa, and my parents had a farm there that they lost during the 80s farm crisis. And then my mom moved down to Missouri with me and my 2 sisters, and she got a factory job there. She's a retired factory worker, and my dad is still a livestock farmer out in western Iowa. And we ended up here because we were just attracted by I always knew I wanted to come back to where I was originally from, to a rural area. And we were just attracted by the beauty of this area, by all the organic farming that's happening in Southwest Wisconsin. And obviously I'm in a same-sex relationship, so we wanted to be able to come to an area where it would be, not perfect, but somewhat accepting for a same-sex couple to be living out in the country.
Okay. And so would transportation be one of the issues that you would be really eager to work on if you're elected to the state assembly?
I'd say it would be one of the issues I think is important. I don't think it's the top priority. If you had to, if you asked me what my top priorities were,
yes,
I do.
Yeah, what is your top priority?
Well, I think my top priority is really bringing back rural areas, revitalizing them. I've got a lot of pride coming from a place just like where we live now in Richland County, and I've seen the decline in rural areas. And I really don't see, as I mentioned in my opening answer, I really don't see the legislature doing a lot to turn things around. I think our rural areas, they need more investment. And so far, the legislature's idea of reinvestment has been giving tax breaks to wealthy people. An example is the manufacturing tax credit that they passed back in 2012, and now it's fully going. 95% of that money goes to people who make over $250,000 a year, and that takes 1% of all of our state income taxes and our state sales tax. And I think, why don't we invest in people who are actually going to do something for our rural communities, especially those that are in decline? I mean, take a village like Cassville on the Mississippi River in Grant County. They've lost almost a third of their population, a third of their school enrollment. You drive down their main street, and I counted at least 7 or 8 vacant storefronts last time I was there. What's being done about this? I think the state has a role to play. The state can't do everything. They're not all powerful. Of course, we have a federal government too that's very important in setting rural policy, but I don't really see the state doing enough, and that's what I would bring. I would bring this energy around revitalizing these rural areas. And of course, that's going to include roads as well. The legislature over the past 10 years has really disinvested in local roads.
They sure have.
Yeah, and I'm sure, this living out in the country like me. Our counties, our townships, our villages, they have not been able to invest as much in our roads because the state has really limited how much money comes back to these areas. And in a lot of ways, the investment has, I think, gone in the wrong places. I think the DOT is probably too focused on big projects instead of maintaining what we already have. And I think people in rural areas, they want to see maintenance. And I lived in Minneapolis. People said the same thing there. They wanted to see maintenance as well. So I think we have to be really careful with how we spend our gas tax money and our other monies that go toward fixing our roads.
Okay. If you are just joining us, you are listening to the Monday, July 27th, 2020 edition of A Public Affair. My name is Patty Peltakos, and I'm your host this hour. Today's show is devoted to the 2 Democratic candidates running in Assembly District 49 in the southwestern part of the state. In this part of the hour, candidate Sean Murphy Lopez is talking about his campaign. If you have a question or comment for Sean, you can reach us by phoning 608-256-2001, extension 9. You can email us at talk@wortfm.org, message us at facebook.com/WORT, or tweet us at WORT Talk. So, given that we have a legislature that is controlled by Republicans and probably will be for the foreseeable future, how would you work with Republicans in the legislature?
Well, so I've got a 2-part answer on that one. So first of all, I don't think that we should necessarily assume that the legislature is going to be controlled by Republicans after November. We see what happened in Virginia 2 years ago with a big shift in voters in that state, and that state shifted from Republican to Democrat control in their legislature, and they did a big shift of several seats. In the state assembly, which I'm running for, we would need 14 seats to change control. So I think it's really important, especially for listeners to WORT. WORT does not come out to my area. I'm past the 50-mile radius. So we probably don't have a lot of listeners who are constituents of mine or future constituents, but
they could be listening online.
That's right. They could be listening online, which is great. But I think we really have to be visionary about this. And there are several seats around the state that could flip. I think ours is probably about the second most likely to flip. And this is based on some statistical analysis from a group called Every District. And they're looking at how to change the control of legislatures around the country. And our district leans Democrat by 4 points when you look at the past couple presidential and governor and senator elections that we've had. And I mean U.S. senator elections. So we have a district that definitely is flippable. Chris Marion's district next door, or the district that she would like to be elected to, the 51st Assembly District, is the most likely to flip. So I would say, look at these districts outside of Madison. We all know Madison's very Democrat. All those districts are going to be elected by Democrats, but there are several districts around the state that are more in play. The second thing, though, I'd say is, we can't predict the future. We don't know if that's going to happen as much as I think it should happen. And of course, I'm trying to win this election for the Democrats in the southwest corner of the state for our constituents. We may have Republican control still. And on the county board, I have learned to work very well with people who are more conservative minded than I am. And we are actually nonpartisan on our county board. So we don't even put party labels behind us, and we don't always know what people's parties are. So, some of the people who I get along with best on our county board are Republicans, are conservatives. And there are things we can find in common. But also I'd say, there are times when we just need to stand up for what we believe in, and we need to get the facts out to people and educate them about what's going on. And I'm also not afraid to do that. My top priority is working people out in our district. And I don't think working people are making good enough wages right now to pay the bills. I don't think farmers are getting enough to not have a second job. Only the biggest, richest farmers are really in business all the time doing that. And this campaign for us here is really about those working people, those former farmers, those people who have lost their businesses, whose families have undergone financial stress, people who, can't get a check from the state right now for unemployment. We're really focused on working people, and also the senior citizens in our district who built up a lot of our rural areas. And are they getting treated well enough right now?
So how is COVID-19 impacting your campaign? And along with that, what are you hearing from people in your district about COVID-19 and its impact on their lives?
Yeah, one way it's affecting the campaign is a lot more is happening online, of course, and that's happening to a lot of people right now. So we have meet and greets now where they're online instead of in person, but we're still doing in-person events as well. And the way we handle that is we use social distancing and masks. We hold the events outside. So we've had a couple of volunteers, one step forward in Cuba City and the other step forward in Boaz, who wanted to do in-person meet and greets. So we're just, I'd say, more careful. We don't invite everyone to come to the meet and greet at once. We invite them to come in shifts. Another way that I've been handling this is, when I go out and I knock on doors, which isn't a very common thing for folks to be doing right now, I just step away from the door enough so that there's proper social distancing. And that's where I'm really getting a sense of how people are feeling about the virus right now. I'd say there's a pretty big majority of people who are pretty worried about it, especially our older senior citizens. They're worried about getting sick. And there are certainly a minority of people who, think things have, this is a hoax or something like that. But I think by and large, most people are really worried about the getting sick part, and then also being able to make a living right now. It's very challenging. I talked to one woman last weekend in Benton. She's a house cleaner. She was not able to get unemployment from the state. Her husband is on disability, and they have, it was either 2 or 3 kids, and she was supporting them. And she's going back to cleaning now, but getting that money and making that mortgage payment was a really big challenge. So I think people have both the economic and the health issues at the forefront. And right now, my opponent in this race, the incumbent Travis Tranel, really hasn't spoken up too much about this, except to say, the governor went too far in his stay-at-home order, and we need more. People want more leadership than that right now. A lot of people are just confused. They don't know what to do. They don't know when to wear masks, if they should go out or not. We just need stronger leadership, not only at the federal and the state level, but also in our local assembly races.
Okay. So I believe Cardinal Hickory Creek, the proposed Cardinal Hickory Creek high voltage transmission line would be running through District 49 if it were built. And I was curious what your thoughts are on that line, and also how the state and particularly rural areas can go about meeting future energy needs.
Well, I think the deck was stacked against the people who were opposed to the power line. There's a state, I'm not sure what it's called, some sort of state commission or state board that made the
Public
decision.
Service Commission.
Thank you.
The Public Service Commission. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the Public Service Commission, I think the deck was stacked. I think most of these big power line projects that come through, they go through a lot of the hoops where they ask the public for their opinions, but then I don't think they really listen to the public that much. I don't know. I think I've heard that it sounds like you may be much more familiar with this than I am, but it sounds like there's a lawsuit out there right now.
There is. Yep.
Of course, I'm going to support the people who are opposed to the power line. And I think the way that we can be meeting our energy needs is by increasing the amount of wind and solar that we have in this part of the state. We basically have almost nothing right now. And just across the border in Iowa, I think one of the recent headlines I read is more than 50% of their energy comes from wind now. And,
right.
There are windmills all over the place. And I think while they do have a few drawbacks, I think by and large, they're very positive for our rural areas. Landowners get annual checks from these companies to rent out the land for these. And also it just cleans up our air and does a lot for climate change. So I think that's where we should be headed. And Iowa put all that in place, by the way, when they were Republican controlled. And that's what I'm really looking for is a lot more, like people in our district, they don't look at the party as much when they vote. They look at the person and what they're going to represent. And there are a lot of good ideas that Republicans have had out there. Right now it doesn't always seem like that. But I think we need to be willing to work with the other side in moments like that to come up with some common ground, especially when it's going to help our rural working people.
So where do you stand on redistricting and fair maps? Are you in favor of a fair maps way forward for the state for future redistricting?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a no-brainer. Even my Republican opponent has signed on as a co-sponsor to that. Now, the challenge, I would say, however, is, he has signed on to that, but what has actually happened? He's one of the few Republicans who has done that. He votes like everyone else votes in the leader for the Republicans every 2 years, and the leadership has not wanted to adopt this more fair Iowa model of redistricting. So this is an instance where I would be very clear about what the facts were. And if I were in my opponent's shoes, I would sure be pushing the leadership to do something about this. And I don't think my opponent is doing that right now. We need more action and less talk on this one.
Okay. And I know that we are getting close to the end of our time, but I did want to slip in a question about water, because I know that water quality is a big issue, most likely, I'm assuming here, but I'm guessing that the voters in your district, the residents of your district, are very concerned about their water quality. And your thoughts on the Water Quality Task Force and what needs to be done to ensure safe drinking water for the people of your district?
Yeah, I think this largely comes down to people who live out in the country who have their own wells, and being concerned that there might be some sort of contamination in their drinking water. And again, this is another issue where there has been a lot of talk and very little action. So there is the Water Quality Task Force that the legislature set up. They passed a series of bills through the Assembly earlier this year, and now they haven't done anything with it in the Senate. So there's no action happening on this, and that's what I would be focusing on, is making sure we were actually getting something done. So I can vote for it in the Assembly, but if nothing ever happens in the Senate, what good does it do? So I think you really have to be able to work with the other side and people in the other chambers, and also partner with the governor. Less acrimony, I think more partnerships is going to actually get stuff done. We don't want to just say we're okay with it, and co-sponsor a bill or vote yes for it. We actually want to do something for rural people.
Okay. Well, Sean Murphy Lopez, it's been great talking with you. Thank you so much for joining me on Today's a Public Affair, and good luck with your campaign.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Thanks for all the good questions. And if listeners want to visit our website, go to SeanforRuralWisconsin.com, and Sean is spelled Shaun.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sean.